looking at the complete musical alphabet, the distance between any neighboring pitches is called a half step. We will use this symbol to represent a half step. 2 half steps equals a whole step. We'll use this symbol to represent a whole step. The guitar is fretted in half steps. If you move up 1 fret from any particular pitch on the guitar, you've moved up 1 half step. So for my open 5th string, which is an A, if I move up to the 1st fret, A sharp or B flat, move up another fret to B, another fret to C, etc. The strings of the guitar from low to high are tuned to pitches E, A, D, G, B, E. And I could determine every pitch on every string by just following the musical alphabet. The only difference between strings is the starting point, but they all follow the same pattern. For example, if this is an E, the 1st fret must be F, the 2nd F sharp or G flat, the 3rd G, the 4th G sharp or A flat, the 5th A, etc. This is a good way to continue to practice our order of pitches. Pick an open string, identify the pitch, and each new pitch as you move up 1 fret at a time on the fingerboard. The general formula for the major scale is whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. From any particular pitch, I can follow that pattern and will be playing a major scale named after that starting pitch. On the guitar, this may look like this. Up a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Regardless of where I start, playing that pattern off of that starting pitch will give you the major scale named after the pitch that we started on. Up a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Or, looking at our musical alphabet, if I start on C, and I move up a whole step to D, another whole step to E, a half step from E to F, a whole step from F to G, a whole step from G to A whole step from A to B, and a half step from B to C. A G major scale, G, up a whole step to A, up a whole step to B, up a half step to C, up a whole step to D, up a whole step to E, up a whole step to F sharp, and then up a half step to G. I must call this F sharp and not G flat because every major scale must be alphabetical. I cannot have 2 of the same letter or omit a letter. Every major scale must include one and only one A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This is why we have different names for the same sounding pitches. It allows each of our major scales to be alphabetically consistent. Additionally, each major scale will have a unique number of sharps or flats. For example, the C major scale has 0 sharps or flats. The G major scale is the only major scale with 1 sharp. A few more examples. D, up a whole step to E, up a whole step to F sharp, up a half step to G, up a whole step to A, up a whole step to B, up a whole step to C sharp, and a half step to D. If you've done it correctly, you'll end on the same pitch you started with. A major, A, up a whole step to B, up a whole step to C sharp, up a half step to D, up a whole step to E, up a whole step to F sharp, up a whole step to G sharp, a half step takes you back to A. E major, we go E up a whole step to F sharp, up a whole step from F sharp to G sharp, up a half step from G sharp to A, up a whole step to B, up a whole step to C sharp, up a whole step to D sharp, up a half step to E. B major. B, up a whole step to C sharp, up a whole step to D sharp, up a half step to E, up a whole step to F sharp, up a whole step to G sharp, up a whole step to A sharp, and a half step takes you back to B. F sharp, up a whole step to G sharp, up a whole step to A sharp, up a half step to B, up a whole step to C sharp, up a whole step to D sharp, up a whole step to E sharp, and up a half step to F sharp. So, bit of a curveball. A D sharp up a whole step would take you to what we would want to call an F, but because we already have an F in the scale, we have to make an exception and call this E sharp so that the alphabetical order is consistent. Up next, we'll do some of our flat keys. We're going to start with F, go up a whole step from F to G, up a whole step to A. A half step is going to take us to B flat. Again, not A sharp because we already have an A in this scale. So we're going to label that B flat. Up a whole step to C, up a whole step to D, up a whole step to E, and a half step takes you back to F. B flat, up a whole step to C, up a whole step to D, up a half step to E flat, up a whole step to F, up a whole step to G, up a whole step to A, and then up a half step to B flat. E flat major scale, E flat up a whole step to F, up a whole step to G, up a half step to A flat, up a whole step to B flat, up a whole step to C, whole step to D, half step takes you back to E flat. A flat moves up a whole step to B flat, moves up a whole step to C, moves up a half step to D flat, up a whole step to E flat, up a whole step to F, up a whole step to G, and up a half step to A flat. D flat moves up a whole step to E flat, up a whole step to F, up a half step to G flat, up a whole step to A flat, up a whole step to B flat, up a whole step to C, and a half step takes you back to D flat. G flat's going to be another curveball for us. G flat, up a whole step to A flat, up a whole step to B flat, up a half step from B flat to what we're going to want to call B, but again, since we already have a B, we have to identify this as a C flat. Up a whole step to D flat, up a whole step to E flat, up a whole step to F, and a half step takes you back to G flat. Practice this and you'll be reinforcing the most foundational concepts in music theory at the same time, the order of pitches as well as the formula for the major scale. And this can save you time because rather than memorizing major scales, they can be derived from these few concepts.